The dark side of Hollywood. The very name evokes images of glimmering lights, red carpets, flashing cameras, and smiling faces dressed in designer gowns. For more than a century, Hollywood has stood as the symbol of fame and fortune, a dream factory that promises the world to anyone daring enough to chase stardom. Young hopefuls flock to Los Angeles every year, clutching headshots, audition tapes, and big ambitions. They come with the hope that one role, one connection, or one lucky break will transform their lives forever. Hollywood, after all, is where dreams are sold. It's where an unknown bartender can suddenly become a superstar, where a child from nowhere can capture the hearts of millions, where a struggling artist can rise to international acclaim. It is the promised land of the ambitious, the restless, and the creative. To the outside world, Hollywood shines like gold. But like gold that glitters too brightly, the shine often blinds people to the darkness beneath. Behind the polished premieres and blockbuster films lies a world built on broken dreams, ruthless power games, manipulation, and exploitation. For every actor who rises to stardom, countless others are left behind, used, discarded, and forgotten. And for those who make it, the price of fame is often higher than anyone can imagine. The truth is, Hollywood is not just a land of opportunity, it is also a machine. A machine fueled by desperation, greed, and ambition. A machine that consumes lives as quickly as it produces stars. The industry thrives not only on talent but on control, secrecy, and silence. It is a place where the powerful hold the keys to destiny, and those without power are often forced to pay a heavy price just for a chance to step inside. Beneath the glamorous surface lies a dark underworld, a place where careers are built on exploitation, where substance abuse becomes a survival mechanism, where predators hide in plain sight, and where mental health is sacrificed for the sake of appearances. The history of Hollywood is littered with scandals, tragedies, and secrets buried so deep that they took decades to surface. And even today, in the age of transparency and social media, many of those shadows remain. This is not the Hollywood of glossy magazines, red carpet interviews, or cheerful award speeches. This is the Hollywood that no one wants to talk about, the Hollywood of broken dreams, ruined lives, and hidden truths. The Hollywood that destroys as much as it creates. As we journey into this darker side, we'll uncover stories of exploitation, manipulation, addiction, corruption, and heartbreak. We'll see how the dream factory often functions more like a nightmare factory. And we'll explore the human cost of an industry that has, for decades, dazzled the world with its brilliance while concealing its darkest truths. Hollywood is more than a place. It is an idea, a dream, and for many, a trap. To understand its true nature, we must peel away the glamour and look closely at the shadows it casts. Because only in the shadows can we begin to understand the real cost of chasing the Hollywood dream. The price of fame. For every red carpet moment, there are years of struggle, rejection, and sacrifice hidden behind the curtain. Hollywood feeds on dreams, but dreams alone are never enough. Every aspiring actor, singer, or writer learns quickly that the price of entry into the industry is steep, and for many, the cost is not measured in money but in dignity, health, and sometimes even life itself. The struggle of the unknown. Every year, tens of thousands of people move to Los Angeles with one burning desire: to make it. They leave behind small towns, stable jobs, and families, carrying with them the hope that Hollywood will see their talent and reward it. But for most, reality strikes fast. Instead of film sets and auditions, they find themselves working as waiters, bartenders, or drivers, struggling just to keep up with rent in one of the most expensive cities in America. Auditions are brutal. Rejection is constant. A casting call might bring together hundreds of hopefuls, all vying for the same minor role, an extra in a commercial, a single line in a TV show, or a background part in a movie. Agents and casting directors rarely offer feedback. "We'll be in touch" usually means the dream is over before it even began. For those who do land roles, the pay is often shockingly low. Independent films and commercials may pay only enough to cover a week's groceries. The glamour of Hollywood is reserved for a select few. For the rest, it's a constant uphill battle just to survive. The cost of identity. One of Hollywood's cruelest demands is conformity. The industry thrives on image. Young actors are told to lose weight, change their hair, adjust their accents, or even undergo surgery. Agents and producers are blunt. If you don't fit the mold, you won't get the role. Aspiring stars are forced to change themselves to become what Hollywood wants, even if it means erasing their identity. Many actors of color face typecasting, restricted to stereotypical roles that perpetuate old prejudices. Women are told they have an expiration date, that once they cross a certain age, the leading roles will disappear. Men, too, face pressure, expected to sculpt their bodies into impossible standards of perfection. Hollywood sells individuality on screen, but behind the scenes, it often demands sameness. The cost of fame, then, is not only perseverance, but also self-sacrifice, the loss of authenticity, the suppression of identity, and the willingness to reshape oneself for the approval of others. The toll on mental health. Fame, even when achieved, is rarely the end of suffering. For many, it is the beginning of new and deeper struggles. Overnight success can transform lives, but it can also destabilize them. Suddenly, an actor goes from obscurity to global recognition. Paparazzi stalk their every move. Strangers dissect their appearance, relationships, and choices online. Privacy vanishes. Every mistake is magnified into a scandal. This constant pressure creates a fragile existence. Anxiety, depression, and loneliness haunt many stars, even those at the peak of their careers. Behind the smiles on late-night talk shows, there are sleepless nights, therapy sessions, and private battles with self-doubt. Fame does not shield one from insecurity. It often magnifies it. For some, it becomes unbearable. The tragic deaths of stars like Robin Williams, Heath Ledger, and many others remind us that success in Hollywood does not guarantee happiness. Instead, it often deepens isolation, making the fall from grace even harder to bear. The exploitation of ambition. Perhaps the darkest element of Hollywood's pursuit of fame is the way ambition is exploited. Aspiring actors are often promised roles in exchange for personal favors, pushed into situations that compromise their values, or pressured into silence when they are mistreated. "If you want to make it, you'll do this," becomes a whispered mantra that traps many into decisions they regret for the rest of their lives. Behind closed doors, deals are made not just on talent but on power dynamics. Young, vulnerable dreamers are manipulated by those who hold the keys to their futures. The more ambitious the dreamer, the easier it is for predators to exploit them. Hollywood thrives on this imbalance. For every aspiring star who refuses to play by these rules, there are 10 more waiting in line who will. And so the cycle of exploitation continues, feeding the machine that keeps the industry alive. The illusion of success. What makes the price of fame even harsher is the illusion that success will solve everything. The idea that one big break will lead to happiness is a myth that Hollywood itself perpetuates. Movies and media glorify the rise of the underdog, the overnight success, the sudden transformation of an unknown into a household name. But success often brings more problems than it solves. Money brings parasites, agents, managers, relatives and strangers all demanding a piece of the pie. Fame brings enemies as much as fans. Every new project carries the weight of expectation. The very thing that was supposed to bring freedom becomes a new prison, gilded in gold but suffocating all the same. The forgotten many. And for every actor who achieves recognition, there are thousands who never make it. These are the forgotten many, the faces that never appear on screen, the names that never roll in the credits. They are the ones who gave years of their lives only to leave Hollywood broken, disillusioned, and empty-handed. Some return to ordinary lives, carrying with them the scars of rejection. Others stay trapped, chasing a dream that continues to slip further away. Hollywood does not care about them. The machine moves on, endlessly consuming new dreamers, discarding those who can no longer keep up. The price of fame is not just paid by those who succeed, but also by those who try and fail. Both groups are left with wounds, some visible, some hidden. And both are reminders that the Hollywood dream, while intoxicating, often comes with a bill too steep to pay. Power and exploitation. Hollywood is not just about art, it is about power. Behind every movie poster, glamorous premiere, and star-studded award show lies a hierarchy of control. At the top sit producers, studio executives, and powerful directors, the gatekeepers who decide who gets a chance, who rises, and who is cast aside. Their decisions shape not only careers but entire lives. And for decades, this imbalance of power has allowed exploitation to thrive in silence. The casting couch. The term casting couch has haunted Hollywood since its earliest days. It refers to the unspoken expectation that aspiring actors, especially women, must exchange sexual favors for roles. What was once whispered about behind closed doors eventually became an open secret, so deeply entrenched in the industry that many newcomers accepted it as part of the system. Stories abound of young actresses, desperate for a chance, finding themselves invited to private meetings in hotel rooms, only to discover that their dreams were being used as bargaining chips. If they refused, they risked losing opportunities. If they complied, they were often silenced with shame, threats, or the promise of future roles. The Weinstein scandal, which exploded in 2017, revealed just how widespread and systemic this exploitation had been. Dozens of women came forward with accounts of harassment, assault, and abuse at the hands of one of Hollywood's most powerful producers. Their bravery ignited the Me Too movement, exposing a culture of silence that had protected predators for decades. But Weinstein was not alone. He was merely the most visible example of a power structure that thrives on imbalance and fear. A culture of silence. For years, the culture of Hollywood operated on silence. Actors who spoke out risked being blacklisted. Agents advised their clients to play along if they wanted a career. Journalists were pressured by studios not to publish damaging stories. The machine of Hollywood was too big, too profitable, and too image-conscious to allow scandal to interfere with business. This silence allowed exploitation to flourish unchecked. Young actors, both men and women, were easy targets. Their ambition made them vulnerable, and their lack of power made them voiceless. Even established stars often hesitated to speak, fearing backlash or career destruction. When victims did muster the courage to tell their stories, they were often dismissed, discredited, or sued into silence. The abuser's reputation was protected, while the victim's career was quietly buried. This culture created a cycle in which predators could continue their behavior without consequence, shielded by their influence and connections. Manipulation beyond sex. Exploitation in Hollywood is not limited to the casting couch. Power is wielded in countless subtle ways, through manipulation, intimidation, and control. Contracts are written in ways that tie actors to studios for years, forcing them to accept roles they don't want. Managers and agents sometimes exploit their clients financially, taking excessive percentages or pushing them into harmful deals. Directors and producers use psychological manipulation on set, pressuring actors to perform dangerous stunts, endure humiliating scenes, or work grueling hours. Some insist that art requires sacrifice, but in reality, the sacrifice often benefits only those in charge. There are countless stories of young actors being promised roles, fame, and security, only to be discarded once they've been used. In this way, exploitation extends beyond physical abuse into emotional and financial territories, leaving scars that are less visible but just as lasting. The gender imbalance. At the heart of Hollywood's exploitation is a gender imbalance that has existed since its inception. For decades, men dominated the executive offices, the directing chairs, and the producer tables. Women were largely relegated to being the faces on screen, valued more for beauty than for skill. This imbalance created an environment ripe for abuse. Women, especially young women, often felt they had no choice but to comply with the demands of powerful men. Those who resisted were labeled difficult or uncooperative, a death sentence in an industry where reputation is everything. Even today, the gender gap remains stark. Female directors, producers, and executives are still vastly outnumbered by men. Female actors are still paid less than their male counterparts, even in leading roles. And while progress has been made since #Me Too, the roots of inequality run deep. The human cost of power games. For those who fall victim to exploitation, the damage is profound. Careers are derailed, reputations destroyed, and lives permanently scarred. Many survivors carry their trauma in silence, too afraid or ashamed to speak. Some leave the industry altogether, their dreams shattered by betrayal. Others remain, but with a hardened shell, knowing that survival in Hollywood requires compromise. Perhaps the most tragic part is that many predators walk away unscathed. Protected by their wealth, influence, and lawyers, they continue to thrive while their victims struggle to rebuild their lives. Justice, when it comes, is slow and incomplete. The illusion of glamour. To the outside world, Hollywood remains a place of enchantment. Movie trailers, interviews, and glossy magazines present an image of magic, creativity, and success. But behind the cameras, the darker truth lingers. The glamour is carefully curated to hide the exploitation beneath. Every award speech thanking producers and executives is also a reminder of the unequal power dynamics that continue to shape the industry. Every breakout star represents not just talent, but also survival through a system that is often rigged against the vulnerable. The shifting tide. In recent years, movements like #MeToo and Time's Up have begun to challenge this culture of exploitation. More victims are speaking out. More predators are being exposed. Studios are being forced to address the imbalance. But while progress has been made, change is slow. The structures of power in Hollywood are old and deeply entrenched. The exploitation of ambition, beauty, and vulnerability remains one of the darkest realities of Hollywood. For all its glitz, the industry has been built on the suffering of those who had the least power to resist. And though the tide is turning, the cost of silence will echo for generations. Drugs, addiction, and escapism. Behind the flashing lights of the red carpet and the carefully posed photo shoots, many Hollywood stars live with a different reality, one marked by loneliness, anxiety, and unbearable pressure. For decades, drugs and alcohol have been the silent companions of Hollywood, offering escape from the crushing weight of fame and the brutal demands of the industry. The cycle of addiction has claimed countless lives, destroyed careers, and revealed the fragility behind the facade of glamour. The tragic toll. The list of stars lost to drugs and addiction is long and heartbreaking. Marilyn Monroe, whose beauty and charisma defined an era, died of a barbiturate overdose at 36. River Phoenix, one of the brightest young talents of his generation, collapsed outside a nightclub at 23. Heath Ledger, celebrated for his role as the Joker, died at 28 from an accidental overdose of prescription drugs. Whitney Houston, once the voice of a generation, drowned in a hotel bathtub after years of battling substance abuse. Each of these deaths was more than just a personal tragedy. They were reflections of an industry that thrives on perfection, but offers little support for the fragile human beings who provide it. Money, corruption, and the hidden industry. Hollywood is built on creativity, but it runs on money. Every movie, every TV show, every award ceremony is ultimately a business transaction designed not just to entertain, but to generate billions of dollars. Beneath the glamour of artistic expression lies an industry governed by contracts, profits, and power plays. And where there is money, there is corruption. Hollywood has always been a place where financial greed collides with ambition, creating an underworld of hidden deals, shady practices, and ruthless exploitation. The studio machine. In the early days of Hollywood, during the golden age of the 1920s through the 1950s, the industry was dominated by a handful of powerful studios: MGM, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and a few others. These studios controlled everything: the scripts, the stars, the theaters, even the press. Actors were tied to long-term contracts that often stripped them of their independence. At first glance, these contracts offered stability, a guaranteed paycheck, a steady flow of work. But in reality, they were chains. Stars could not choose their own projects, negotiate their salaries, or even control their personal lives. Studios decided who they would date, what they would wear, and how they would appear in public. If an actor disobeyed, they could be suspended, replaced, or blacklisted entirely. The studios were less concerned with art than with marketability. Scandals were covered up, sometimes with bribes, sometimes with threats, to protect profits. Reporters who dug too deeply risked losing access to the stars. Police officers were paid off to keep incidents out of the public eye. The system was designed to maintain the illusion of glamour while hiding the corruption underneath. The influence of organized crime. As Hollywood grew into a multi-billion-dollar business, it inevitably attracted the interest of organized crime. By the 1930s and 1940s, mobsters had begun infiltrating the industry, using their influence to control labor unions, nightclubs, and even parts of the studio system. Actors and filmmakers who crossed the wrong people risked not only their careers, but their lives. The mob saw Hollywood not only as a cash cow, but also as a powerful propaganda tool. Movies could shape culture, influence public opinion, and distract audiences from real-world struggles, all valuable to those looking to consolidate power. Some mob figures laundered money through Hollywood productions. Others controlled talent agencies, forcing actors into exploitative contracts. While much of this influence was hidden, its fingerprints can still be seen in the shadows of Hollywood's history. Agents, managers, and exploitation. Even outside the world of organized crime, corruption thrived in more subtle ways. Agents and managers meant to protect the interests of actors often became exploiters themselves. Young stars, eager to sign with powerful agencies, sometimes found themselves pressured into deals that siphoned away much of their income. Contracts were written in deliberately complex language, filled with clauses that left actors trapped. Some stars lost millions to crooked managers who embezzled funds or mismanaged their wealth. By the time they realized, it was often too late. Hollywood is littered with stories of actors who rose to fame but died broke, their fortunes swallowed by the very people meant to protect them. The problem continues even today. Behind every celebrity's glamorous lifestyle lies a web of contracts, percentages, and hidden deals. The higher a star rises, the more people demand a cut. Agents, managers, lawyers, publicists, stylists, assistants. Many stars discover too late that they are surrounded not by friends but by vultures, all feeding off their success. Studios versus artists. Perhaps the most visible corruption in Hollywood has been the constant battle between studios and artists. Studios, with their billions of dollars in resources, have always sought to control creative voices. Writers are pressured to alter scripts to make them more marketable. Directors are forced to compromise their visions for box office appeal. Actors are bound by contracts that limit their freedom. The recent strikes by writers and actors highlight how little has changed. The fight for fair wages, residuals, and creative control has been ongoing for decades. Streaming platforms have only deepened the divide, generating massive profits for corporations, while many creators struggle to make ends meet. Behind the spectacle of Hollywood lies an economic machine that prioritizes profit above all else. Art often takes a backseat to market trends, sequels, and merchandising opportunities. Creativity becomes just another commodity, bought and sold like any other product. The cost of corruption. The human cost of this corruption is immense. Talented artists find their work stolen, altered, or buried. Actors discover that their worth is measured not in skill, but in how much money they can generate. Directors lose creative control over projects that once inspired them. Writers see their scripts rewritten beyond recognition. For those who resist, the punishment is swift. Careers stall, reputations are tarnished, and opportunities vanish. Hollywood's power structure ensures that those who play by the rules of corruption succeed, while those who fight against it are quietly erased. Behind closed doors. Much of Hollywood's corruption operates in secrecy. Deals are struck in private meetings, far from the cameras. Bribes, backroom agreements, and unspoken favors keep the machine running smoothly. Those on the inside protect each other, while outsiders are left in the dark. Whistleblowers face immense pressure to stay silent. Journalists who expose corruption are often threatened with lawsuits. Even audiences, enamored by the magic of the screen, prefer not to look too closely at the machinery behind it. The illusion is more comforting than the truth. The hidden industry. For every blockbuster film, there are countless shadow deals behind it. Marketing tie-ins, international distribution rights, product placements, tax breaks, and government incentives. Money flows through these channels in ways that are almost impossible to track. Hollywood presents itself as a world of dreams, but in reality, it functions as a global corporate empire, with all the corruption, manipulation, and greed that entails. For the stars, it means constantly walking a tightrope, balancing their art, their public image, and their survival in a system designed to exploit them. The illusion of control. To the public, stars seem to be in control. They appear wealthy, powerful, and independent. But behind the curtain, Many of them are trapped in contracts, beholden to managers, pressured by studios, and manipulated by hidden financial interests. Their lives, like their movies, are carefully scripted. The corruption of Hollywood is not always visible, but it shapes every aspect of the industry. From the movies we watch to the stars we admire, everything is touched by money and power. The Dream Factory is, at its core, a business empire where the line between art and exploitation has long been blurred. The broken dreams of child stars. Few things capture the public's imagination like the story of a child star. Audiences are enchanted by the sight of precocious children delivering lines with charm, singing with angelic voices, or bringing innocence and joy to the screen. From Shirley Temple in the 1930s to today's Disney and Nickelodeon stars, child actors have long been central to Hollywood's success. But behind the cuteness, the smiles and the applause lies a darker truth. The system that creates child stars often destroys them. The loss of childhood. For most children, life is a mix of school, play, and discovery. For child actors, it is auditions, rehearsals, and long hours on set. They grow up under hot lights and the watchful eyes of directors, crew members, and, most crushingly, the public. Their childhoods are not their own. Every moment becomes performance, every smile calculated, every word scripted. The demands are enormous. Many child actors are forced to work adult hours, juggling education with shooting schedules that would exhaust even seasoned professionals. The line between reality and performance blurs. They learn early that approval comes not from genuine affection, but from delivering what others want to see. The pressure of parents. Parents play a complicated role in the lives of child stars. While some genuinely support their children's dreams, others see them as tickets to wealth and fame. Countless child actors have spoken of parents who lived lavishly off their earnings, leaving them broke when they reached adulthood. The most infamous case is Jackie Coogan, the beloved child star of Charlie Chaplin's The Kid, 1921. Despite earning millions, Coogan discovered as an adult that his mother and stepfather had squandered nearly all his money. His case led to the creation of the Coogan Law, which requires a portion of a child actor's earnings to be set aside in trust. But even with legal protections, exploitation continues. Some parents push their children relentlessly, forcing them into auditions, controlling every aspect of their lives, and prioritizing money over well-being. For the child, the pressure is immense, pleasing not only producers but also parents whose happiness depends on their success. The transition trap. Perhaps the hardest challenge for child stars comes when they grow up. Audiences adore them as children, but often lose interest when they become adults. The roles dry up, the fame fades, and the identity crisis begins. Who are they when the spotlight turns away? Many child actors struggle to transition into adult careers. They are typecast, unable to escape the image of the cute kid they once played. Casting directors dismiss them, and fans move on to the next young sensation. For some, this rejection is unbearable. To cope, many turn to drugs and alcohol, seeking to fill the void left by the loss of fame. The tabloids are littered with stories of former child stars arrested, hospitalized, or caught in downward spirals. The very industry that once celebrated their innocence now profits from their downfall, splashing their struggles across headlines. Famous tragedies. The history of Hollywood is filled with heartbreaking stories of child stars undone by the system. Judy Garland, pushed into stardom as a teenager, was manipulated with pills, exploited for profit, and left broken by the time she reached adulthood. Gary Coleman, beloved for his role on Different Strokes, faced financial ruin after his parents mismanaged his fortune. Corey Haim, once a teen heartthrob, battled addiction and exploitation, dying at just 38. Even those who survive often carry lifelong scars, trauma from lost childhoods, strained family relationships, and the crushing burden of public scrutiny. For every child star who successfully transitions into adulthood, dozens fade into obscurity or tragedy. The hidden exploitation. Worse still is the hidden exploitation that many child actors face. Some have spoken of abuse, emotional, physical, and even sexual, at the hands of those who were supposed to protect them. The imbalance of power between vulnerable children and influential adults creates an environment ripe for predators. Hollywood's obsession with youth, combined with its culture of silence, has made child stars particularly vulnerable. The very people tasked with guiding their careers, agents, producers, directors, sometimes became their abusers. Many survivors remained silent for years, fearing no one would believe them. The shattered illusion. The image of a smiling child on screen hides a reality of exhaustion, pressure, and pain. Hollywood packages innocence and sells it to the world, but behind the curtain, that innocence is often lost forever. The broken dreams of child stars reveal one of the darkest truths about the industry, that it is willing to sacrifice even its youngest and most vulnerable for profit. For audiences, child stars are symbols of joy. For Hollywood, they are investments. And for the children themselves, they are often victims, trapped in a system that robs them of youth and leaves them struggling to rebuild lives that were never truly their own. Hollywood's dark secrets in the spotlight. For decades, whispers of abuse, exploitation, and corruption swirled around Hollywood, but they rarely reached the surface. The studios controlled the narrative, publicists polished reputations, and tabloids fed the public carefully curated scandals without ever exposing the full extent of the rot. Yet no secret can stay buried forever. Over time, Hollywood's darkest truths began to crack through the facade of glitz and glamour, and the world finally started to see what had long been hidden. Scandals that rocked the industry. Hollywood's history is filled with scandals that shocked audiences, from mysterious deaths to explosive revelations. In the 1920s, silent film star Fatty Arbuckle was accused of sexual assault and murder, a scandal that dominated headlines and tarnished his career, even though he was eventually acquitted. In later decades, the deaths of icons like Marilyn Monroe and Natalie Wood raised questions of foul play, cover-ups, and hidden truths that remain unsolved to this day. In more recent times, shocking revelations about powerful figures confirmed what many insiders had long suspected, that the industry often protected predators while silencing victims. Hollywood had become a kingdom where those with power could act without consequence, and those without it paid the price. The casting couch exposed. The casting couch had long been an open secret in the industry, a euphemism for the exploitation of aspiring actors and actresses pressured into sexual favors in exchange for roles. For decades, it was joked about in movies, whispered about at parties, and brushed aside as part of the business. But behind the euphemism was a grim reality of abuse. Many young actors, desperate for a chance, fell victim to powerful men who treated their bodies as bargaining chips. For years, these stories remained suppressed, dismissed as rumor, or blacklisted by those who dared to speak up. The casting couch symbolized not only exploitation, but the imbalance of power that defined Hollywood. The Weinstein Effect. In 2017, the floodgates opened. The New York Times and The New Yorker published explosive investigations into producer Harvey Weinstein, exposing decades of sexual harassment, assault, and intimidation. Dozens of women came forward, sharing harrowing accounts of abuse that had been hidden under layers of silence, legal settlements, and threats. Weinstein's downfall was more than just the collapse of one man's empire. It shattered Hollywood's code of silence. Suddenly, powerful figures who once seemed untouchable were being scrutinized. Victims who had been silenced for years were finally being heard. The scandal ignited the global Me Too movement, uniting survivors across industries and shining a light on the systemic abuse of power. The culture of silence. Why did it take so long for these truths to come out? The answer lies in Hollywood's culture of silence. Victims feared retaliation, knowing that speaking out could end their careers. Agents and managers often discouraged complaints, reminding their clients that powerful men held the keys to their futures. Studios, desperate to protect profits, worked to suppress scandals, hiring lawyers, publicists, and private investigators to keep damaging stories out of the press. Even the media played a role, with some outlets complicit in burying stories to maintain access to stars and studios. This system created an environment where abusers thrived and victims were trapped. It wasn't just about individual predators, it was about an industry that prioritized power and money over human dignity. The courage of whistleblowers. Change only came when individuals risked everything to speak the truth. Actresses like Ashley Judd, Rose McGowan, and later countless others stood up against Weinstein despite knowing the risks. Journalists pursued leads relentlessly, breaking stories that powerful people wanted buried. Activists amplified the voices of survivors, transforming personal pain into collective strength. The courage of whistleblowers cracked Hollywood's carefully maintained image. No longer could the industry hide behind glamour and tradition. The public was watching, and the victims refused to be silenced. A turning point, or just the beginning? While the Me Too movement marked a turning point, questions remain about how much has truly changed. Some predators have faced justice, but others continue to thrive. Power imbalances remain, and whispers of exploitation still linger. Still, the exposure of Hollywood's darkest secrets forced a reckoning. The world saw that beneath the Oscars, the red carpets, and the flashing lights was an industry built on silence and fear. The victims, once erased from the story, finally became its authors. The shadow behind the spotlight. Hollywood markets itself as the dream factory, a place where anything is possible and stars are born. But as its secrets emerged, the world saw that the dream came at a devastating cost. For every blockbuster hit and golden statue, there were silenced voices, shattered lives, and hidden wounds. The spotlight may dazzle, but the shadows it casts are long and dark. And as more secrets come to light, the illusion of Hollywood grows harder to sustain. The dream and its shadows. Hollywood has always been more than an industry. It is a dream factory that feeds on hope, ambition, and imagination. It promises the extraordinary, and at times it delivers. But behind the glamour and the glitter lies a system built on secrecy, control, and sacrifice. For every dazzling success story, there are countless tales of broken dreams, exploitation, and lives consumed by the relentless demands of fame. The dark side of Hollywood reminds us that what we see on screen or on the red carpet is never the whole truth. The smiles, the awards, and the fame often mask untold struggles of loneliness, manipulation, addiction, and despair. The price of stardom is not only measured in fortune and attention, but also in mental health, freedom, and humanity. And yet the allure persists. Every year, new dreamers arrive in Los Angeles, ready to risk everything for a chance at the spotlight. believing they will be the ones to make it. Some do, many don't. In the end, Hollywood will always remain a place of contradictions, both dream and nightmare, fantasy and reality, light and shadow. To truly understand it, we must see both sides.